So what VPN will allow them to do in relation to Twitter is to help them share information with the rest of the world securely, is to help them connect, is to help them establish a secure connection. So if, for instance, I run a church and my church has presence in 170 countries, and I have followers on Twitter, about millions and millions of followers on Twitter. They've gotten used to getting information from me. They've gotten used to getting correspondence from me. If you say I should deactivate my Twitter account, those people will suffer. That's the point. So if Nigeria looks at it critically, Nigeria realize that in China, VPNs are not deactivated. In China, VPNs are in use. So even the China that you look forward to say we are going to try to copy China, the guys in China, they allow VPNs. The only thing is that VPNs that are in use in China, they follow a legal procedure. Government would have to approve them. So it is government approved VPNs that is being deployed in China. So you see why, if you try to adopt the Chinese strategy, you realize that the regulations in China is very, very harsh. Very, very harsh. Social media is totally regulated in China. In the China scenario, you have internal networks and external networks. With internal networks, the Chinese government is just trying to say you don't have any choice but to use our alternative for Google, which is Baidu. With internal networks, the Chinese government is saying you don't have any other choice but to use our alternative for Twitter, which is Weibo. With with internal networks in China, they are saying you don't have any alternative but to use our indigenous apps. So that's the point. If you are telling Nigerians not to use Twitter, you need to understand that a lot of them have gotten used to Twitter as their source of livelihood. For instance, you have social media influencers. Some of them make money from Twitter every month. People will go to slide into their DMs, and when they slide into their DMs, they are requesting for uh, influence. They want them to use their influence to and their number of followers to maybe advertise a particular product or service. Somebody can slide into a female uh, Twitter influencer's account and request for advertisement. The person will request for a fee. Say, I'm going to send you uh, pictures, some of these pictures of my products, of my brand, so that you can paste it or post it on your profile so that your followers can see it. It's just like endorsement. A lot of them make money through that. Some of them make 50,000 every month. Some of them make 100,000 every month. Basically, it becomes the source of their income. So if in trying to suspend Twitter, some of these guys, they won't be making money. So if you calculate the amount of money that is being lost from government move, it will amount to a lot. It might even amount to billions. But that's not the point. The point I'm trying to make is that if Nigeria tries to fight with America and their technological products, they would ultimately head in the direction of China. And when you head in the direction of China, China would create a platform that will replicate their own response to America's technological products. So you see, in Nigeria, you will be talking about adopting the Chinese model, and in adopting the Chinese model, Nigerians will be talking about using VPNs as a ladder to cross over the suspension. And in trying to use VPN as the ladder to cross over the suspension, China will create the Nigerian firewall. The Nigerian firewall would prevent Nigerians, millions of Nigerians, from using free VPNs to access some of these banned websites. So what does the firewall do? The firewall will serve as a control mechanism. The firewall will serve as a regulatory mechanism. So in trying to use VPN, for instance, with the firewall, the site will not be reached. Just the same way if you try to use MTN to link up with Twitter, it will say the site cannot be reached. That's exactly what the firewalls will do. The firewalls will serve as a control mechanism, will serve as a regulatory mechanism. So you see, when Nigeria tries to head in that direction, they need to understand that there are going to be bottlenecks if you try to become like China, if you try to adopt the Chinese strategy, if you try to inculcate or replicate the Chinese model, there will be bottlenecks. But what are the bottlenecks? One of them is you need legislative measures to back your move up. That's it. You need legislative mechanisms or legislative measures to back the move up, because the creation of a great firewall does not have a provision in the Nigerian constitution. The creation of a great firewall does not have any policy or rule that is backed by legality in Nigeria. So it needs to come or pass through a legal mechanism. It needs to pass through a legislation. It needs to pass through laws. It needs to pass through bills before that would happen. So if you look at Nigeria today, you have some legislators. They are part of the guys that are breaking the rules. A lot of legislators are still gaining access to social media. A lot of legislators in Nigeria are still gaining access to Twitter. These are the guys that are supposed to create the laws. That is, if Nigeria is interested in heading in the direction of the Chinese model or the Chinese method. So you see, Nigeria is not really prepared for the control or the regulation of social media, because there are so many processes involved. It requires not just directives like what they are doing now. They are just adopting directives to control social media. Directives is not enough. Getting a biro and writing an order, getting a biro or requesting or ordering NBC or ordering radio stations or ordering TV stations or ordering the NBC or ordering the NCC is not enough to regulate social media. You need to back it up by legislative measures. You need to back it up by advanced filtering technologies. That's the only way it will make sense. That's the only way the suspension will become a suspension. If I work for a company and I'm suspended, if the panel decides that I'm not supposed to continue to work because I've been suspended, I'm not supposed to still stay in the organization. I'm supposed to be suspended. So that's the point. If Nigeria is interested in having the suspension really bite, then what I have just said are the moves they would really have to consider. Now, it makes sense to consider them because Nigeria does not have comparative advantage in technology. So it's not enough to write, it's not enough to order NBC, it's not enough to order NCC, it's not enough to tell ISP, block it. You have to back it up with technology. And Nigeria does not have strength in those areas. That's why Nigeria needs to link up with other nations that have comparative advantage in the field of technology. So you see, when you create rules, when you create guidelines, you need to create exceptions too. You see what let's look at the Chinese and the Indian scenario. How did India react to social media giants in America? And how did China react to social media giants in China? Look at what China did. With the Chinese model, they have created their own indigenous platforms. Weibo, for instance, uh, uh, Weibo, for instance, Beidou, for instance, are the Chinese response to the American product, the Chinese response to the American or the social media or big tech companies' product. Now, in China, for instance, they come up with their own rules for their own indigenous products. Every single subscriber on social media in China follows what they call the know your subscriber policy. It's like what the banks in Nigeria adopt. It's called KYC in Nigeria. Nigerian banks, they call it KYC. Every subscriber needs to provide verified information. When I say verified information, every social media account is linked to a valid name. Every social media account is linked to a valid address. So you see how it makes sense in China. See, the guys in social media, they come up with regulations, and those regulations makes it very easy to identify the good guys from the bad guys. In China, for instance, if there is an issue, if there is violence, if there is protest, if there is anarchy that is being staged on social media, the guys in China, they just relax. They can easily pinpoint the guys that are the initiators. They can easily pinpoint the guys that are the masterminds. So within minutes, they just go to your house and pick you. They just go to your house and they pick you up. Within minutes, they just identify the bad guys. Say social media, there's a trend. It's something is trending. There's a viral hashtag in China with their own know your subscriber policy, with their own verified information and verified address. It becomes easy pickings. The bad guys becomes easy pickings for the Chinese government. They identify the guys that are initiating the social media hashtag. They identify the masterminds behind the social media movements. They make moves to hijack them. They make moves to prosecute them. It's not stressful. So what the Chinese people have done with social media is somehow what the Indians are requesting from Jack Dorsey. They say we need some of these secrets. We need some of this information because on Twitter you can log on to Twitter with pseudonyms. On Twitter you can log on to Twitter with fake names. Somebody might not be Musa, but he can log on to Twitter as Abdullahi. Somebody might not be Abdullahi. He can log on to Twitter as Rachel. Somebody can be a male. He can log on to Twitter as a female. No addresses, no verified information. So it becomes hard for the Indians to figure out who are the bad guys. That's the reason why the Indian government is requesting. Say, this is what we want you to do. These are the new rules. You must obey, you must comply. So you see, nations of the world are reacting to big tech companies differently. So Nigeria is coming up with suspension. Now, apparently, the suspension is not really producing the desired effect because you are having lots of people, they are reacting to it differently. The youths in Nigeria that are addicted or obsessed with Twitter, they are still using VPN to link up to Twitter, even with the suspension. There are some legislators in Nigeria, I don't want to call their names, a lot of them are still using VPN to link up with Twitter. A lot of religious institutions, religious leaders, they are still linking up with Twitter. A lot of traditional rulers, they are still linking up with Twitter. So, what does that tell you? It tells you that the move has not really been effective. And the only way it can be effective If Nigeria realizes that